Hello, students. Today we are going to read Chapter 7 Packing. This chapter is written by Jerome K. Jerome. Jerome K. Jerome, he was an English writer and humorist and best known for the comic travelogue Three Men in a Boat, and this book was written in 1889. The chapter Packing that we are going to read today, it is an extract from the book Three Men in a Boat. This story is a humorous account of three friends attempting to pack their luggage before going on for a vacation. The narrator and the two friends, George and Harris, they decided to go on a vacation. The three friends, they felt that they were actually getting tired of the hectic, busy life, and thus they wanted to take a break. And thus, when they decide to go on a vacation, they come to the narrator's house for packing. So they had to leave the next day, and it was the time that they must pack their luggage. The narrator, he thought that he was an expert in packing, so he offered his friends to do the packing. The other two at once agreed to his suggestion, and then the incident followed. The whole incident that we are going to read is an humorous account, and thus you will enjoy reading the story Packing. So let's start the reading. Chapter Packing, written by Jerome K. Jerome. Here, the narrator is the writer himself. The writer said, I said I would pack. I rather pride myself on my packing. Packing is one of those many things that I feel I know more about than any other person living. It surprises me myself sometimes how many such things there are. I impressed the fact upon George and Harris and told them that they had better leave the whole matter entirely to me. So the narrator, he felt that he was good at packing things. And that's why he says, I rather pride myself on my packing. Pride myself means I'm proud of my packing. And he felt that his ability to pack things was better than others. He also says that it surprises him. Sometimes he feels that how such things happen to him. And thus he impressed the fact upon George and Harris. Impressed means he told with an emphasis to his friends, George and Harris, that they should leave the matter of packing entirely to him, entirely, completely to him. They fell into the suggestion with a readiness that had something uncanny about it. The narrator said that there was something strange about it, the way they had readily accepted the suggestion. The word uncanny means something weird, something strange about their behavior, that they had accepted his suggestion. George spread himself over the easy chair and Harris cocked his legs on the table. The two friends, they agreed to his offer instantly, which was strange. George sat comfortably on the easy chair, and Harris has bent his knees as he sat on the sofa and kept his feet on the table. The narrator says, this was hardly I had intended. What I had meant, of course, was that I should boss the job and that Harris and George should potter about under my directions. Intended. Intended means desired. And the word boss the job means to supervise the job. So the narrator said, by saying that he would pack, he did not mean that his friends would sit down and relax while he would do all the work. He says that I should boss the job and that Harris and George should potter about under my directions. So he had meant that he would boss the job, he would supervise the job while George and Harris would do all the chores. He would nag them and curse them. So he says, I pushing them aside every now and then with, oh, you. Here, let me do it. There you are, simply enough. Really teaching them, as you might say. So the narrator says that he would nag them and curse them for not knowing the work well, and then he would just chip in to sort out the mess that they would create. He was irritated to see them sitting while he did all the work because he did not expect them to behave in such a way. What narrator had meant was that he would supervise the job, and his friends George and Harris, they would work under his supervision, following his directions. So the narrator says they're taking it in the way they did irritated me. So he was quite annoyed on seeing his friends doing nothing and just sitting on the sofa. Nothing does irritate me more than seeing other people sitting about doing nothing when I am working. And thus, narrator says that this is the behavior that irritates him the most when he is working and others are doing nothing. He gives an example by saying, I lived with a man once who used to make me mad that way. He would loll on the sofa and watch me doing things by the hours together. He said it did him real good to look on at me messing about. And now I am not like that. I can't sit still and see another man slaving and working. I want to get up and superintend and walk round with my hands in my pockets and tell him what to do. It is my energetic nature. I can't help it. So, the narrator, to justify his statement, he gives an example. He recollects that once he lived with a man who would sit lazily on the sofa all day through and would watch the writer do all the work. The man would say that he enjoyed watching him go around doing all the work. This would definitely make the writer mad with anger. The writer adds that he could not sit idle and watch others work like slaves. On the contrary, he liked to check their work, walk around with his hands in his pockets, and direct them on how to do the work properly. He feels that as he was very energetic and an enthusiastic man, it was a part of his nature to behave in that manner. So he says, I can't help it. I cannot sit idle when others are working. So he likes walking around his with his hands in his pocket and telling others what to do. He continues saying, however, I did not say anything but started the packing. It seemed a longer job than I had thought it was going to be. But I got the bag finished at last and I sat on it and strapped it. Now, the writer said that he did not say anything to his friends and he started packing. And he was helpless there because they had already taken their seats on the sofa. So he had to start with the packing thing. So he did pack the things, and it took him a long time to pack all the things. And as he closed it, Harriet said that he had forgotten to pack his boots. And he said, Ain't you going to put the boots in? Said Harris. And I looked around and found I had forgotten them. That's just like Harris. He couldn't have said a word until I got the bag shut and strapped. Of course, and George laughed. One of those irritating, senseless laughs of his. They do make me so wild. So, as the writer had started packing, and when he was about to close the bag, he had strapped it. He had closed the zip of the bag, he had put the straps on. Finally, he was done packing. And then at that moment, Harris reminded him that he had forgotten to pack the boots. The writer, he felt that Harris could have reminded him before he had closed the bag, but he thought that Harris was like that. He was angry at Harris that he could have told him beforehand. And this was followed by an irritating laughter by George, which made Jerome wild with anger. George enjoyed the situation a lot, and thus he started laughing, and his laugh irritated him. He calls his laugh as a senseless laugh of his. That laugh, which had no sense at all, the way he used to laugh at people, he calls it senseless laugh, and his laughter actually made him angry. The writer continued by saying, I opened the bag and packed the boots in. And then, just as I was going to close it, a horrible idea occurred to me. Had I packed my toothbrush? I don't know how it is, but I never do know whether I have packed my toothbrush. So finally, Jerome opened the bag again to keep the boots in it. And as he was about to close it again, he was struck by a strange thought that had he kept the toothbrush or not. Now, see, students, this is a very common habit of people. When we have to go on a journey and we are packing, most of us we forget to pack the toothbrush. And similar thing happened with Jerome. He was struck by this idea whether he had kept the toothbrush or not. He says that he never remembers if he has packed the toothbrush or not. And thus, he continues by saying, my toothbrush is a thing that haunts me when I am traveling and makes my life a misery. I dream that I haven't packed it and wake up in cold perspiration and get out of the bed and hunt for it. And in the morning, I pack it before I have used it and have to unpack again to get it. And it is always the last thing I turn out of the bag, and then I repack and forget it and have to rush upstairs for it at the last moment and carry it to the railway station wrapped up in my pocket handkerchief. So, see the humor in this passage, that how the narrator is haunted by the thought of carrying a toothbrush. Haunting means troubled, disturbed with the thought. Misery means sad. Cold perspiration refers to waking up with sweat. Pasine se bhig jana. To hunt means to search for it. So Jerome, he adds that while traveling, he always messes up with carrying his toothbrush. He has nightmares of not having packed it, wakes up in sweat and looks for it. In the morning, he packs it before using it and then unpacks the bag to get the brush and uses it. So, as it is the last thing that comes out of the bag, he has repacked the bag. He forgets packing it again. And it is at the last moment he rushes to his room to get the brush, and finally he wraps it in his handkerchief and carries it to the railway station in his hand. So, this is how he is always troubled with the toothbrush. So, he says, of course, I had to turn every mortal thing out now, and of course, I could not find it. I rummaged the things up into much the same state that they were, that they must have been before the world was created. And when chaos reigned, of course, I found George's and Harris's 18 times over, but I could not find my own. I put the things back one by one and held everything up and shook it. Then I found it inside a boot. I repacked once more. He says that as he was looking for his toothbrush in his bag, he had to remove everything, but he could not find it. Mortal things refers to every ordinary thing, everything that was in the bag at that moment. He had to take it out of the bag. Rummaged, Rummaged, means searching in a hurried and careless manner. Chaos, it means confusion. And reigned means when the chaos ruled everywhere. As you can see in the picture here, how things are scattered before packing. So the narrator, he had again created the mess by taking out every particular thing that was in the bag. He had to search for the toothbrush, and he says that I found it. I found George's and Harris's 18 times over. He found many times his friend's toothbrush, but he could not find his brush. So he kept everything back into the bag one by one, shaking each item. Finally, he found the brush inside a boot. And then once again, he repacked the bag. Well, dear students, we will stop here today, and the rest of the chapter will be continued in the next session. Have a nice day, students. Thank you.